Hi, everyone. Welcome back to The Exchange. My name is Ruby Jones, and I'm here today with Dr. Fernando Branch, who's the principal of the Robert F. Smith STEAM Academy in Denver and co-founder and executive director of the Colorado Men of Color Collaborative. Thank you so much for being here with me and taking the time to have this conversation.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Jones. A pleasure to be here.
Now, I feel like this conversation is long overdue. I wanted to speak to you for so long because I love all the things you're doing in the community, and it seems like your organization is just taking off. So, for those who are less familiar with you and your work, tell us a little about yourself and what led you to working with young people in education and men through your organization.
Yeah. I've been working in education in some capacity for over the last 27 years. And I think through and through the work that I do is grounded in serving people. I'm a strong advocate of servant leadership. We have a concept called the radical containers for change, where change truly doesn't happen from the top down or the bottom up. It's both at the exact same time. And for those who know me, I really try to ground that theory of action, that change, into all the work that I do, whether it's in the K-12 space or in the nonprofit space. I love the K-12 space. I'm still a high school principal here at Robert F. Smith STEAM Academy, Green School, right in the heart of the historic Five Point skyline and Park Hill community. And the work that I really do with CMOCC really came about as a result of finishing my doctoral work and experiencing depression myself and seeing that there just weren't a lot of providers or people to go to. And if you know anything about me, it's like once you find a gap or niche to provide to those who are in need. You just don't sit on that, right? You have to be mobilized to generate change and an outcome to better our community. So within a year and a half time, CMOC came about as a support for men's mental health, social mobility, and career advancement. And now we're not just expanding here locally, but expanding across to other states because it's an area now that is definitely looking at the suicide rates for men of color and black men in Colorado. This is our time to really think differently about having a new type of talk around men's mental health.
It's interesting to hear the principles that the organization was founded on, and I can imagine that your experience as an educator really helped shape your vision. I would love for you to share a little about CMOC's programs and how the organization is run.
Yeah, so when we originally first started, we saw the gaps were around supporting men directly with strategies around navigating trauma, whether it's financial trauma, generational trauma, physical trauma. There just wasn't a lot of providers that talk about this from a preventative lens. An example would be a lot of the funding, the RFPs you see are about restorative or rehabilitation. The problem with that is that it's too late. It's too late once men have been incarcerated. Not to say it's too late, but part of the opportunities and the bench now has been limited, right? So what we try to do, we have a motto: for community, by community, serving community. Well, we go out and work with clinical providers, therapists, social workers, trained professionals in the field, and they give us strategies on how we engage in these conversations from your brother, your sister, your cousin, individuals who are already in the community, who are aware and they're seeing some of the things that could be happening. And then how do we then say, hey, I know about it, I've addressed it, but now we need to get you to that next person. That's where I think CMOC just really took off because it's a safe way to talk about these taboo topics that aren't normal in the Black community around the stigma for men talking about mental health. And we just normalize the conversation to say it's okay to be not okay. And then it really took off from there. I mean, within the last 3 years, not just here locally, but we started to see other organizations around the country leading and starting to take this initiative because it's again it's preventative, which didn't exist 10 years ago at all. There was no one talking about preventative mental health for men of color. So I'm really proud that we were able to be one of the catalysts in the country to get ahead of that narrative. But also continue to push forward and support other organizations, both local and nationally, that see the importance of driving systematic change around this particular area of focus.
So I'm listening to you, and I have to admit that I've been a little jealous because I see the great work you're doing, and I'm like, well, I want to go on the men's hike and I want to go to the men's gathering, and I hear you though when you say that when you were looking for different resources, it was difficult to find them, and that there's not a lot of resources that really address mental health or just wellness specifically for boys and men of color. This may be an obvious question to you, but for someone like me who's sitting back saying, well, I want to be involved, what led you to decide that this programming should specifically target boys and men of color as opposed to just being a community wide, all gender kind of system?
That's something that in the very beginning we really struggled with that. And at the heart of what CMOC does is community. And it's fully inclusive. We don't turn away anybody. So, there are ladies, there are people who are cisgendered, gender neutral come to our events, and they're welcome just as much as anyone else. But the data, again, when we looked at the data here locally and as well as nationally, and looking at incarceration rates for the last 40 years, we didn't believe that Black males disproportionately are worse off or are committing more crimes. We know the data, and we knew that there has to be a stopgap, an area that we can create an intervention to create a systematic change. We also knew that if we didn't narrow our focus specifically around men of color and boys of color, that's where we were seeing again the largest number of suicide rates locally, that nobody was talking about the fact that, Black and brown men were killing themselves disproportionately to the population of the state. So that really just defined our purpose and our core here locally. And with that data, we were able to really lean in and collaboratively, part of the reason we put collaborative in the name is that we don't do this work in isolation. We do this work with other community partner organizations, other leaders like yourself who are doing amazing work, because it takes a village. And in no way have we come into this space thinking that we are the cure for anything. We're just one vessel and part of the solution that's going to take a greater community effort to have long-term and sustainable impact to make, our men healthy, and then we know our family is going to be healthy, and then in essence, we know our community and then our state is going to be healthy.
That's a great answer. I guess I'll put my hiking boots away and I will let you all to it. I think the work you're doing is incredibly important. But tell me a little bit about yourself and your background and why this community service and this outreach is so important to you personally.
Nobody's never asked me that question. I was growing up, I'm a native of Memphis, Tennessee, and if you know anything about Memphis, it's amazing barbecue, amazing food, good music. But there are serious challenge when it comes to equity of education, social mobility, economic advancement, and incarceration rates and mental health. It's one of the, I would say, one of the most challenging cities in the world, in the country, around tackling what many perceive to be a criminal justice issue. And I would beg to differ. I think it's a mental health issue, and getting ahead of that. So having that experience and, being from the South, seeing disproportionately the impact and also the correlation between the achievement gap, right? That education piece, knowing that there's a 30% achievement gap that has existed for the last 80 years, and the incarceration gap that's 30% and higher. That really became a core focus of why I wanted to get into this work, but also why, again, it was a calling for me to get into this work, because something we have to do something differently. If we don't do anything different, then you're going to produce and generate the same results, right? The definition of it, insanity, is continuously do this exact same thing and expecting something to change. So we as an organization, and I think me, in my own personal story, I've navigated those exact same traumas, and I'm no different than the next brother that's next to me. And the thing that I wanted to, I think, do differently is be that organization that exists within the margins, be a different type of organization with scalability to be able to fill that void, fill that gap on a preventative lens before, we continuously start to see, the destruction of our communities. And there just wasn't a lot of opportunities that I saw that were doing that with this particular focus around, sustainability, education advancement. You see skill development, right? But what happens when a person is trained on the skill, but they still have a diagnosis or they still have a mental illness, and then they resort back to the exact same behaviors that got them in trouble or put them in a difficult situation in the first place. So I wanted to think about things differently. It's not just getting people jobs. Jobs isn't the solution as to why we were seeing incarceration rates increase, why we were seeing suicide rates increase. I wanted to get to the other side of that, and getting to the other side of that again was really being intentional about around how we were going to create a community of learners, a community of men that truly value a new way of thinking about themselves. I give you an example, right? You've heard of the talk. We all go through it as people of color, and we know what that means. I wanted to put a spin on that. I think there has to be a new talk, and the new talk has to be between fathers and sons, between mothers and sons, to say it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to show emotions. It's okay to navigate macro microaggressions. It's okay to speak up about these things that you're feeling, about these things that you are navigating daily. That when I was growing up, my father would say, "Hey, boy, don't cry. Be tough. You don't, these are things that you just don't do." So I really want to change that narrative, and I think in changing that narrative, we're going to be a better society for it.
That's a great example. And everything that you said is just so admirable, the way that you think about putting the pieces together. And the fact that you're working with young people as well, I think about the pipelines and just the systemic inequities that we experience socially and, within the school system. I want to know, since you're working one-on-one or, one on many all the time in an educational setting, why is it so important to have representation in education?
Oh yeah. Our students have to see themselves in the leaders that are teaching them. The biggest challenge I think right now that we're seeing, and again, I think this goes back to one of the tenets in CMOCC with our Education Excellence Initiative, is to develop more Black male teachers. It's very difficult to be what you don't see. And when you have someone in front of you that are having these critical dialogues and these critical conversations around social emotional learning, and it's not being, stigmatized, that changes the parallels and the outcomes for the students that are receiving that information. So it's absolutely essential that we put people in front of the students that not only represent their identity, but also represents their stories. A lot of people don't talk about the importance of bridging the connection of like real stories and the life lived experience. And that's the part I love every day about being in the K-12 space, that I get a chance to tell my story every day. Sometimes it hits and it misses, but the great thing about having teachers who also have those unique stories and perspectives is that you can create a community. You can create that top down, bottom up, same concept that I use with CMOC, to rethink about how we do K-12 education, and how we think about engaging students around the needs that they need social emotionally and the relationship capacity that we want them to have long term, not just in this 4 year cycle of high school, but in life. That's important, how you navigate these traumas and these triggers, and giving students a toolbox of resources around, the castle framework around social emotional learning. That's really what's been missing, and that's why I think we've made a pretty big dent here in Colorado of seeing that works, and it correlates with student achievement.
So, speaking of stories, what are some of the participants in your CMOC programs saying about the work that you're doing?
Oh, Jason Lester would say, just keep your foot on the gas. He would, as a social worker, I know this is a passion. I think a lot of people say that it's different. I think they say that it's community. We attract a lot of newcomers to Colorado as being the first organization that people come to help acclimate to Denver to the Front Range. Um, I think people will say we are a representation of the community, and it's all of our community. It doesn't own. I don't own CMOCC. CMOCC is something that exists within all of us. It's a collective, unified effort of creating something bigger than ourselves. I think that's what people probably will sum up and say best.
So I want to know about your vision for CMOC over the next 5 years. And I also want to know, how do corporate and community partnerships help bring that vision to life?
Yes, that's a great question. We just put out our impact report for 2026, and the data was amazing. That one of the biggest outcomes that came out of that was that of the 120 some men that we surveyed, pre and post informational sessions and empowerment sessions that we've done, there was about a 98% growth in the awareness around their mental health and physical health. Those are data points that are very clear and very charged to tell us that this work is needed in every American city, and eventually every city around the world, because again, it's still so taboo, and normalizing conversations around mental health for men has to be an area of focus that we can possibly address other deficits that we see in society that have been traditionally very difficult to target. So we see expansion. We know that South Carolina and Georgia are pretty much cities that are open, states that are open right now to what we're providing. We know Memphis and New Orleans have expressed interest as well. So we definitely see some expansion, and how that plays into corporations and other foundations is that as we continue to grow, it's going to be absolutely essential that we seek out those type of organizations that see the importance of an organization like this, um, that see the value in having a diverse population of men that are healthy to their individual organizations and their bottom line. This is a win-win for community, corporations, partners, collectively, and we seem to have figured out a nice formula for engaging our philanthropy partners and our corporate partners to see the value in it, not just in the short term, but also in the long term for them because of the career orientation piece as well. And I think with that, CMOC attracts every profession. We have doctors, we have lawyers, we have individuals with GEDs. We have folks who have previously been incarcerated. We don't discriminate. It's an open organization for everyone to improve, to get better, but you have to seek that out, right? We're not going to do it for you. You have to be willing to make that commitment that you want to improve. And there are going to be people who are going to look just like you. They're going to help you every step of the way in a very unique way where you're not doing it by yourself. You're not on a journey by yourself. You're on a journey with the full community that collectively is behind you. All you got to be willing to do is work and be able to have the capacity to want to be something greater.
I hear that. That's a great thought. Now, in 2024, you were recognized with a Men to Watch award from Blacks in Leadership Worldwide. And then you were also recognized as 50 under 50 outstanding young alumni from your alma mater, University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. And I know you're an active member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. So I want to know, has there been one mentor in your life who's really helped shape your focus or given you the confidence to move forward in this direction?
I've had so many amazing mentors. I would have to say in the education space, in the nonprofit space, and there's so many different people from so many different backgrounds, and race and creeds, and have all contributed and poured to me. But my father instilled in me. I can recall, this is a story that I'm sure your viewers will love. He was a truck driver for over 35 years. And I can still remember that my dad would come home, he would sit on the couch, he would put on WWE, um, or the other wrestling show, and he would have me or my brother come and take his boots off. And oh man, his boots would stink like, I mean, something seriously. But then his socks would be so drenched and wet that it was just like, oh. But I remember it because it reminded me that he worked so hard to take care of a family of six. And to this day, that belief in hard work and knowing that there's no substitute for hard work, right? Hard work beats talent when talent refuses to work hard. I've always been humbled to that lesson from him. And I think that has always guided not just my leadership, but I think it also guides the way that I value and I treat people. Um, there's no substitute for it. You have a lot of talented people that don't ever get off the ground with a concept and an idea. My mom always said, she said, the good Lord gives you visions for a reason and why he allowing other people to dream because the opportunity has passed them by. So if you have a vision, that's an anointedness to move to action. So I try to be present where my feet lie and work really hard to leave this world and this city a little bit better than I inherited when I came here. And hopefully, when I leave, there's a legacy that speaks to a commitment of service and a commitment to community and culture that left, a little bit better off than what I inherited. So
I think that you are well on your way to doing that. And your mom's words gave me goosebumps just then. So I'm going to receive that too. I have one last question for you. If you could speak directly to every young man of color in Colorado, what would you want him to hear?
I think I would want them to hear that you are valued. Your experiences are not just your experience alone, they are the experience of a collective group of people, of a generation of experiences, and that there are organizations, there are people, there are opportunities to help you be the absolute best version of yourself because it's already in your DNA. That level of greatness, the ability and the capacity to do amazing things is there. And that if all you need is a push, right? All you need is the support. In some cases, sometimes it's just the love and the encouragement to say, to keep going and to keep enduring. Go for it and do it. And if there's an opportunity to partner with an organization like mine to participate with anything that we do within CMOCC, the door is always open, and that's the most beautiful part about progress. There's a word called kaizen in Japanese culture that says the act of improvement is a continuous process of life. So practice kaizen. Know that you are always a product of improvement, and perfection is something that's is not attainable, but you can always be better. So seek out opportunities and people to support you to be better. And can I say one more thing?
Of course.
I would say be cognitive of the people that you are around. I think there are two kind of people. There are people who talk about things, talk about ideas, that talk about systems, that talk about change, that talks about progress, right? And then there are people who talk about people. I think it's a very different contrast between the two, and be cognitive of who you're around. Are you around people who are talking about people, right? Because eventually that's who you become, or are you around people who are who are talking about things, who are talking about systems? Because that has just a different frequency to function on, and life is a lot better when you are surrounding yourself with people who are really functioning and talking about improving systems and outcomes for all of us.
Yes, Lord. That's the word, Dr. Branch.
Thank
How
you,
do
madam.
people how do people learn more or how do people find information about CMOC and you?
Yeah, you can always go to the website www.cmocc.org. You can reach me directly at fbranch@cmoc.org. And I have all the social media handles as well. that you can reach out if there's an opportunity to collaborate. I'm always open to it, and feel free to connect.
Well, thank you so much again for doing this and having this conversation. And I just wish you the best in all that you do.
Thank you, and continued success with all the amazing things you're doing as well.